Hello HOI4 community. Recently I saw a post on the subreddit where somebody with over 1,000 hours said they've never used tanks in any of the world conquests, which is perfectly fine. But I saw that a bunch of the comments also weren't quite familiar with how tanks work, which made me want to try and make a quick tutorial for you guys and explain how the stats work as well as visualize them for you and show you actual examples of what tanks do and how you should use them. So for the examples I have set up for you guys today, we're going to be doing only tanks and only infantry comparison to make sure we get rid of every other factors. We're not going to be using generals, we're not going to be using anything other than a single doctrine. Both Poland and Romania will have 1939 infantry equipment, but Romania will also have 1941 heavy tanks, as those are the only ones we could research. Poland is going to be the defender, they're going to have full entrenchment bonus. And Romania will have a variety of different attacks, which we will analyze in a moment. For the record, we won't be using any of the DLCs, as I personally do not play with the modular DLCs, but I'm sure people in the comments will explain how it works for DLC version. All the info I will give in this video will apply for DLCs too. There's nothing different, because the math is the same, regardless of what stats you use. Now, with that out of the way, let's see what the issue is with attacking without tanks, shall we? Now, here's a division I see most often used to attack mountains, right? You build all the mountaineers, you put them all in one spot, you make them 24 width or 25 using artillery, and then you just send them at the enemy mountains. Now, it's great, this division is great for defending, but it absolutely sucks for attacking. And the main reason why is it doesn't have any breakthrough. As you can see, the defense is really high and it's perfect for defending, but it just doesn't have any breakthrough. And that is a massive difference. So let's have a look at what breakthrough does. Breakthrough is the defense on attack, essentially. It's the stat you get under your little commander when attacking. The reason it is so powerful is because by default, the base stat of the enemy hitting you is 40% chance. So the enemy has, for every soft attack or hard attack they have a 40% chance of hitting you, aka doing damage. But if you have enough breakthrough defense, it goes from 40% to 10%, essentially reducing the damage you take by 75%. Which means that you basically deal 75% more damage as well, and you can sustain combat for 75% longer. That is massive. It is also very important to note, depending on if you're an attack or defense, even if you don't have enough breakthrough, having a lot more is very good, because for each breakthrough you have, that is one more attack you're going to be reducing by 75% damage. So ideally you want to be able to block all of the enemy's attacks, therefore reducing all of their damage by 75%. However, even if you can't get that much breakthrough, it's still better to have more breakthrough than less, because that's a lot more attacks you're gonna end up blocking, even if it's not all of them. And since the enemy attacks with soft attack and hard attack, you want to see what percentage of the enemy's hard attack and soft attack you're receiving depending on your hardness. Lastly, having too much breakthrough is also a bad thing because it doesn't do anything. Once you block all of the enemy's attacks, that's it. You don't need more. You'd rather spend that extra production on either artillery to do more damage or just more divisions in general that have tanks. So essentially you want as much breakthrough as possible, aka as little amount of tanks in your template, to reduce production costs, increase the amount of divisions you can deploy, increasing the effectiveness of your army, and jam as many artillery pieces in that division as you can instead, because they have a lot more soft attack than tanks. Especially tank artillery, aka SPGs, you can research from the tank tree. And before we get into the examples, I just want to also mention armor. Armor is also extremely important if you can have enough of it. And the way armor works is that it reduces damage by 50%. This is after the hits. So it's way more important to reduce the amount of hits so that armor can do its job. Because reducing the damage of 4 attacks is a lot less effective than reducing the damage of 1 attack. So your armor actually is only 12.5% damage reduction if you do not have enough breakthrough. Whereas it is 50% damage reduction if you do have enough breakthrough. Another benefit to armor is that it also does 40% more damage to organization when they cannot penetrate you. But that's enough math for now. Let's actually see what happens. So we're gonna use a single 25 width mountaineer with no tanks division, and we're just gonna send them against 2 25 with infantry divisions fully entrenched in Poland, and we're gonna see what happens. I also disabled the weather to keep the testing consistent. As you can see, we barely did any organization damage to the enemies. We lost 2.2 thousand troops, and we barely killed 168. We also lost 316 infantry equipment. So this was quite a bad attempt at pushing. Next up, we're gonna try doing the exact same thing, but this time with a template where we replaced one of the mountaineers with a heavy tank division. Now doing this keeps our combat width at 24, however it increases our production cost by double. So later we're going to do another test where we're going to compare two divisions, aka the cost of the tank division, but at double the combat width, versus what the tank division can do on its own. That being said, let's see what the tank division can do now. 24 width, so same as before, but now we have armor, we have the heavy tanks, and we have breakthrough. Let's see how much more effective this division will be compared to the one without tanks. So as we can see, the combat length lasted way longer. And we also have 2,000 casualties, the same as before, but now we lost 9 tanks as well. The biggest benefit is we have done 3 times the amount of casualties nearly. We did 408, so at double the cost, we're doing 3 times the damage. That seems really effective at the same combat width. Okay, now let's try the same production cost. So we're gonna throw 2 divisions of the mountaineers without a tank battalion, and let's see how well they do against 2 normal infantries. So as we can see, the bottom mountaineer gets targeted heavily by the Polish infantry, and they get knocked out of the fight instantly. Then they focus on the top one and knock them out of the fight quickly as well. So if we take a look at the battle results, we'll see that we lost about 4,000 troops, but we killed 600. So we killed about 4 times more than the infantry on its own because their attacks were split amongst 2 breakthrough divisions, which made the fight last a lot longer. But it also gave us a shit ton of casualties. And if we compare it against what the tank did on its own, we'll see that the tank achieved 75% of 2 mountaineer divisions on its own at half the combat width, as well as the same production cost as 2 mountaineers without any tanks. And now finally, the moment you've been waiting for, let's see what happens when we have 2 of these tank divisions, aka the same combat width as the 2 mountaineer divisions, but now we have armor, and we have tanks, and we have breakthrough. And immediately we'll see that the combat length is gigantic. It's so much longer than the other battles. Furthermore, we're taking a lot less organization damage, and we're dealing a lot more organization damage. Half of the battle, we actually had a chance of winning this. However, the dice roll decided that our tank division lost organization first. We also managed to kick one of the enemy divisions out of combat. When looking at the post statistics, we see that we lost the same amount of troops as we did with the normal mountaineers, but we're doing double the damage. We're doing so much more damage, and we're actually kicking troops out of combat. That's the most important part, kicking troops out of combat. So for the final example, we're going to use a front line, and we're going to use a frontline battle plan, offensive line. And this will help because we're going to create planning bonus. Now with the doctrine we have a planning bonus of 60%. What this does is each percentage gives us 1% more attack and breakthrough and heart attack, which will counter the enemy's entrenchment. Hence, giving us a lot more breakthrough, a lot more damage. And if before we couldn't have enough breakthrough, thanks to the planning bonus, we'll now be able to block all of their attacks. And as a result, the outcome of this battle will be completely one-sided. And as we can see, we now have a boost to our breakthrough. And even though they have more soft attack than our breakthrough, we have 7% hardness, which means that 7% of their soft attack gets reduced, and instead they use 7% of their hard attack. But as you can see, that's not enough, and we're completely running through the tile. If we now take a look at our casualties, we'll see that we only lost 2,000, so we halved our casualties, but we managed to create 2,000 casualties on the Polish side. So it is by far much better to use tanks in any division, in any template for attacking, especially when you're combining mountaineers with tanks. Mountaineers give special bonuses, but if you do not use tanks, those special bonuses get wasted. So you want to use tanks in combination with those bonuses, because then the terrain bonuses of the mountaineers get translated onto the tanks, which means you now have tanks that do extra damage to mountain tiles, how it's supposed to be, compared to if you just paired tanks with trucks or regular infantry. The last thing I want to add is that due to the way armor works, which is something I didn't mention earlier because I was just dumping stats, but due to the way it works, 40% of your division's armor comes from the highest armored battalion in your division. What that means is that you flat out get 40% of whatever highest armor it is that you have. So if you have a heavy tank with 100 armor, you get 40 armor on the entire division flat. Then the other 60% of the armor gets calculated as an average of all of your other battalions. So if you have 6 tanks and 6 infantry, the other 60% you will basically get half-half. AK, you will only receive 50% of the armor left over. So that would be 40 armor plus of the remaining 60 armor of your 100 armor division. That would be 30 armor. So you would get the flat 40 plus 30. That will make your division 70 armor. Lastly, I just want to leave you guys with one of my favorite divisions that I like making, which is 50% tanks, 50% SPGs. And in the non-DLC version, SPGs do a lot of damage. They do about 2 to 3 times the amount of damage as regular artillery, which makes them great for pushing infantry tiles. And here are them in action. So same thing, same setup as before. You can see the increased damage absolutely shredding the enemy. And because of the length of the fight is much shorter, because we do a lot more damage, we also take a lot less damage. Only 1.5 thousand casualties for 2,000 killed. And that's all. I think that's enough information to share. I think this is plenty of info for people who don't know how tanks work. And I wouldn't want to go into any more balance or detail or metas because everybody has a different playstyle. And I think this should help you guys develop your own meta or playstyle easier rather than me telling you what to do. Or telling you, use this template, this is the best template in the game. No, guys, just make your own templates depending on the terrains, depending on the countries, depending on whatever the heck you want, and depending on your playstyle. That's the most important thing. Just go out there and have as much fun as you can. Also, thank you guys for watching. Please look at the comments, because there's probably going to be like 1,000 people telling me how I'm wrong about stuff. Or just ignore everything and just play the game. Okay, bye now.